Nouakchott to Tajika, and hell on earth for some as the sandstorms were whipped up. An early liaison of 71 kilometers followed by a special of 580 in a long northern loop coming down and finishing the day in Tajika, some of them still in the desert. Well, all sorts of navigation problems for Jean-Louis Schlesser yesterday. He gambled on following Matsuoka and lost the bet. Today, well, he thought he'd try the same. This time, it paid off. The misfortune this day were going to Matsuoka himself. Navigation problems, as you can see, there were. A few wide loops on the course. Nothing too difficult at this stage, but the soft sands were to throw up all sorts of problems, and as the wind whipped up, a lot of navigation points that are used for reference with the road book were masked, and it caused problems all over the place. Well, Matsuoka was to finish the day 6th, maintaining, thankfully his lead overall. Schlesser himself admitted that Kleinschmidt was his #1 target of the day. Schlesser had a fabulous day, it has to be said, as others failed around him. Jean-Louis, his machine seemed to be absolutely built for this day. No overheating problems on the buggy. The Mitsubishis were having them. Schlesser, once he found the ground that suited him, you can just see the speed of his vehicle. He paid tribute to the mechanics, but the driving was something else as well. Well, where Schlesser was flying, José-Marie Servier was in difficulty. Mechanical problems for him. It was the rear axle. The locals not able to offer much else other than sympathy. And sympathy was needed in buckets full as the weather closed in. The winds got up, the soft sand often masked, giving everyone problems. Kleinschmidt, she says many will be sleeping in the dunes tonight. Others, thankfully, home safely. Thierry Delavert. Cooling problems, he had to remove the front grille to try and get as much air as he possibly could past the engine. And it seemed to pay off for him. No chance of any camel grass today. Some, as you can see, netting the front of their vehicles just in case they hit any of this very brittle vegetation. It does shred and go straight into the radiators. It caused problems yesterday. Not too much difficulty in that department today, but the sand itself was the problem. And as you can see, the leaders were sticking quite close together. Jutta Kleinschmidt at the back of these four. And Kleinschmidt tumbling down the rankings today. Finished with a decent time, coming home in 5th place, just 18 minutes and 24 seconds off Schlesser's leading time. It meant that she fell into 3rd place behind Souza, who had a decent day, finishing 2nd behind Schlesser. Well, Schlesser seemed to be enjoying himself. Getting airborne more often than not, it seemed. Riding those bumps to perfection. Suspension trouble yesterday, the setup today, spot on. Well, Schlesser and Fortney doing battle. Fortney coming home in 3rd place today. He's in 6th overall, but an hour and 37 minutes down. Stefan Enrad in his rather quirky buggy, VW diesel turbo. Well, he spent 1 hour and 10 minutes in the dunes today after the success of yesterday, where he went so well. The balance of the machine just not suited to these conditions. Gregoire de Mervius, Well, he had overheating as a constant problem, said the car needs to literally go back into the wind tunnel to figure out just how they can improve things for next year. So more of the same for him as far as difficulty was concerned. Sabi in the Ford Pro truck, still without that windscreen. 7th home today, 9th overall. Shinazuka, well, all but lost for him this Dakar. He'd hoped for so much at the start, but so many dreams have been buried in this race, in its history. Why should he be excused? Philip Vanberg, one of those disappointed today, a broken rear axle. Well, we're having quite a bad day today, he said. We've damaged the gearbox, the axle as well. He said it's just difficult to figure out. Same mechanical problem that Bruno Sabi had 3 days ago. It's happening to us now, 100 kilometers after the start of the stage, and we just don't know how we're going to reach the arrival this evening. Oh, Philip Ray, Wanberg's co-driver, says when you realise the time goes by as quickly as it does, you hope to be able to repair your car, but after a while, unfortunately, he says you're going to get closer and closer to retirement. And indeed, it is all over for the Vanberg team tonight. So let's take a look at those results. On stage 12 of this year's Dakar, Jean-Louis Schlesser driving like a man possessed and coming home in 7 hours and 1 minute 11:59 clear of Sousa. Fotnay in third, ahead of Serbia, with Kleinschmidt there 18 minutes and 24 seconds off the pace. It means Matsuoka stays on top ahead of now Sousa. Kleinschmidt down to third, with Schlesser closing the gap as ever. Well, we caught up with Mr. Schlesser, as he likes to be called. A day of long valleys, camel grass, soft sand, he said. And I've hurt my neck. I'm not surprised the way he was flying through the air. Some heavy landings taking their toll, but Schlesser happy to be climbing once again. Carlos Sousa said in the sandstorm and some of the grass and the soft sand, it really made life difficult, but I'm very happy, he said, to be quicker than a Serbia buggy today. We're absolutely flat out. Of course, ahead of Jose Maria Serbia.
Today is a very long day. 580 kilometers. So we 2 times stuck in the sand, very soft. So we don't have a mechanism of air pressure change system. So very difficult. So lost time maybe 20 minutes.
And the car?
Car is so good. For yesterday night, mechanics did good work. So now it's good.
So very pleased, I think you can pick out of that. Yes, Mr. Matsuoka is currently leading the rankings and very pleased about that. Still to come, the bikes. What a day it was for them. Do stay with us. We'll be back after a very short break. It's worth watching.
The new Mitsubishi Pajero Pinin. Take it off-road. Some songs just sound better behind the wheel. Tracks that make you want to drive simply for the sake of it. And these are the 60 original and best road tracks. They're the greatest drive songs ever written. All on 4 CDs or cassettes called On the Road. They're all the songs that'll stay with you, however far you're going.
Down along the track, she lost her home and her family, and she won't be coming back. What I am is what I am, you what you are, oh what?
Got a black magic woman. Got a black magic woman.
Everybody's talking at me. I don't hear words they're saying, only the echoes of my mind.
When I was walking in Memphis,
To get on the road, you buy direct by picking up the phone. For your copy, call now. At Insight, we know great music when we hear it.
Back to the Total Paris Dakar 2001 with Total.
Welcome back. Well, not a bribe to persuade the organisers to cancel today's stage as far as the bikes were concerned. Oh no, this was a trial of strength for the two men that mattered at the top of the rankings. Jordi Alcaraz and Fabrizio Meoni, the main contenders in this arm wrestle. And I can bet you they wish they hadn't done that before today's stage. They needed all the strength they could muster. Well, just as in the arm wrestle, it turned out to be a battle between Alcaraz and Meoni today. And as you can see, the conditions very difficult indeed. Alcaraz, Meoni and Alfie Cox all together, coming up to a valley head and seeing that there was absolutely no way down. Sometimes it's just best to push. Fabrizio Meoni maintained his overall lead by the end of the day, but not without his difficulties. He was very cautious today, saving his fuel, and indeed crashed a couple of times. He was worried that he would actually run out. Alcaraz was waiting for that incident to happen. He knew that Meoni uses a riding style that uses an awful lot more fuel than he does, and so he was hoping that Meoni would run out and he could just go straight past. Others further down the ranking with their own private battles. Patrick Siriol, one of those. Well, on board with him. He says today it'll be a long day. I think I'll see an awful lot of sand. Just trying to manage my fuel consumption. That was Meoni and everybody else. He says now everything is okay. If I take my time, then I should get the bike home okay. It's running well at the moment. He says I've just got to take my problems one by one. This morning I started ready to attack. Well, he was holding back a certain amount, which you of course have to. Getting reference points when you're on a bike is difficult enough, but when the sandstorms come, it's nigh on impossible. Per Gunnar Lundmark was one of those suffering. As visibility dropped, he lost some of his reference points, got lost, crashed a couple of times, ran out of fuel. John Deacon had to give him 2 litres, but Lundmark, winner of one of the stages here, was in trouble. There's one of his heavier falls, gave him concussion. Alfie Cox it was that found him, got him back on his bike and said, for goodness sake, try and finish. Lundmark did. He's got a broken nose, a swollen eye, and he will race tomorrow. What a guy. Giovanni Sala, fuel line problems for him. Just try and clean it up and start moving once again. Gary Tiernan out. He was leading at 446 kilometers and the engine blew. This race takes no prisoners. Fuel and air filter problems. Fell twice, did Carlo Di Gavado. Not much time for discussions. The time checks and the fuel controls. Would have been a great day for BMW. It had Cyril Desprez managed to stay aboard, was going very well, then fell twice, 30 kilometers from the end. Number 9, the old trooper from South Africa, Alfie Cox. He said it was easily the hardest day so far, hardest on the privateers, he said, and not many of them are going to be starting tomorrow. Cox 5th on the stage, 5th overall. The man ahead of him in the standings is Esteban Puyol. He finished 6th today to keep his 4th place. John Deacon on another BMW gave some of his fuel to Lundmark, totally on his own, he said, for 580 kilometers today. Couldn't see the road book at times. It was tough. Jimmy Lewis agreed. He said at times he couldn't see the hand in front of his face. He has wrist problems, as we well know. Sprained a wrist earlier in the Dakar. He stayed safe today. Jean Brucy, 9th on the stage, just behind Jimmy Lewis, 8th overall. Lewis is 6th. And America's Johnny Campbell, the highest placed Honda, 11th on the stage. He's 8th overall. So let's take a look at the results of stage 12. Acheron's finishing it at 7 hours, 11 minutes and 16 seconds. Just think about that for a moment. Constantly standing on your pegs, going through some tough terrain. Meoni, 2nd, 57 seconds adrift, something of a miracle. He really gunned it towards the end. Then came Gavado, Puyol and Cox. Overall ranking, 20 minutes. Acheron's down on Meoni. That's the way they stand. Jordi Acherons said this was one of the hardest days I've ever had on a motorbike. He had to be always on the pegs, standing up, very difficult also because of the sandstorms. Couldn't see anything, he said. We had to follow the GPS instead. Soft sand, camel grass everywhere, a few different valleys. You had to try and find your way between each one of them. He said, I'm obviously very, very happy that I've won this stage. And indeed that I've got through it all. Sentiments shared by so many on this day. Well, Acheron's started off with an arm wrestle and had to tussle with Meoni right the way through today. He got the better of him in the end, and indeed closes the gap by a minute in the overall standings, but he's still 20 minutes and 16 seconds adrift. So what of Fabrizio Meoni? Well, he says Nouakchott-Tijika was a stage of great difficulty, very tiring, a lot of sand and so much navigation, he said, a lot of wind. There was a sandstorm right in the middle. It was a really difficult day, but thankfully it's gone well for me. He said, I was afraid that I wouldn't stay on the track. I wouldn't manage to reach the end. I calculated that I hadn't got enough fuel to arrive, so I went a bit slower. He said, eased off the gas for the last 100 kilometers. Tried to economize as much as possible so that I could arrive at the finish. But he said, luckily I realized that I should check my fuel just before the end. Lost some minutes, had a look, everything was okay. It wasn't so bad. So I really opened up towards the end. I'm still on top, so it's okay, he said. I'd like to attack more on this part of the Dakar, but now I just don't need to at this stage. All's going very well. Dakar's still a long way off, he said. I'm just going to continue to nurse my bike home. It's the way I've got to do it this year. And that, of course, is the comfort of the leader. Everyone else is chasing you. And the hair is going very well indeed this year. Stay with us after the break. We'll be taking a look at the big boys.